You ever walk away from a conversation, maybe play it back in your head and just think, I said way too much? We've all been there. Well, today, we're going to dive into how that very thing we always rush to fill, silence, can actually be flipped. How it can go from being a weakness to, honestly, your greatest source of strength. So let's start with a really direct question. Just think about it for a second. In your life, at work, in a negotiation, just talking with people, are your words a precision tool, a weapon, or are they a weakness? Are they maybe costing you respect, costing you leverage in ways you don't even realize? This quote, wow, it just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? The more you speak, the more you leak. Think about that. Every single word you don't absolutely have to say is a piece of your strategy, a piece of your intention that you're just giving away for free. It's not just some bad habit, you know? It's literally a form of self-sabotage. You're handing the advantage right over to anyone who's smart enough to just listen. Okay, so this leakage of information, that's what we're going to call the power leak. And this is the first big idea we really need to get our heads around. It's all about how so many of us, completely unintentionally, just talk ourselves right out of a position of power. We say too much, way too soon, and far too often. So picture this. In any room, there are basically two guys. You've got the loud man. He's the one filling every bit of empty space with noise. He's broadcasting his strategy, he's desperate for approval, and he's losing leverage with every word. And then you've got the silent man. He's just watching. He's calculating. And his silence? It's like a blank screen where everyone else just projects their own fears and insecurities. The difference in who walks out with the power? It's not even close. All right, so if we've got a power leak, how do we plug it? Well, the first step is to build a shield, and that's what this next section is all about. We're talking about using silence defensively. And look, defensive does not mean passive. It means making yourself strategically unreadable and, as a result, a whole lot harder to mess with. And let's be really, really clear about what unreadable means. This isn't about being some kind of emotionless robot, okay? It's about disciplined emotional display. The psychological edge you get from this is huge. Because when you control the data, the little flickers in your expression, the knee-jerk reactions, you completely mess with their ability to predict what you're going to do next. You force them to guess. And most of the time, they're going to guess wrong. So how do you get there? Well, it's a path, and it has 3 core disciplines. First, you control your face. Keep it neutral, especially under pressure. Second, you master your reactions. You choose your response instead of just letting an impulse fire off. And third, and this one is absolutely crucial, you detach from the outcome. What does that mean? It means your ego, your self-worth, it isn't tangled up in winning this one thing. And man, that gives you the ultimate power, the power to just walk away. It's all about internal control that then just radiates outward. And that's really the whole game, right here. Look, anybody can have an outburst. Anyone can lose their cool. That's easy. Real strength, true power, is found in that tiny little gap between the trigger and your response. It's about feeling that rush, that impulse to just react, and then taking a breath and choosing a smart, deliberate action instead. That's what separates the men from the boys. Okay, so we've built the shield, we're protected. Now it's time to learn how to use silence as a weapon. We're officially shifting from defense to offense. This next part is all about how to proactively create value, how to build leverage using a simple, powerful idea, scarcity. I mean, it's a basic law of economics, right? But it applies just as much to people. Think about it. If something is always available, we just don't respect it as much. Constant availability screams low value. But the second something becomes scarce, boom, demand goes through the roof. Its perceived worth just skyrockets. And look, this is way bigger than just keeping your mouth shut. You can apply this to everything. When you strategically withhold your time, it signals that your time is a priority. When you withhold your opinions, it makes people curious about what you really think. You withhold instant approval. Suddenly, it's something people have to earn. You're making all these things that you used to give away for free valuable. You're forcing them to show their hand first. Nowhere is this clearer than in a negotiation. This table just lays it all out. The person who talks too much, they get nervous in the silence. They start rambling. They reveal their desperation just to make the awkwardness go away. But the silent negotiator? Oh, they understand that tension is a weapon. They let it hang in the air, let it build, knowing that the other person will almost always crack first and start giving things up. The person who says less leaves with more. Simple as that. All right, this brings us to the final and most advanced level of this whole thing. We're calling it the gravity of presence. This is where we go beyond just using silence as a tactic or a tool. This is the highest level of mastery, where it just becomes a part of who you are. It's a quiet, effortless power that you just radiate. And I absolutely love this phrase. Don't be noticed, be felt. See the difference? The goal isn't to be the loudest guy, the one demanding attention. The goal is to be felt. To have an influence that literally changes the energy in a room the second you walk in, before you've even opened your mouth. So how do you do that? I mean, really, how is that kind of presence actually built? How do you get to a place where you command respect without saying a word? Well, it's built on these pillars, and notice how they all come from the same place. Internal control. Your movements become economical, no fidgeting, because you're not agitated inside. Your speech, when you do talk, is deliberate and slow because your thoughts are clear. Your gaze is steady, unflinching, because you're not easily intimidated. And all of it, every single piece, is anchored in this deep internal stillness that comes from one thing, being completely detached from needing anyone's approval. And that right there, that's the end game. When you get to this level, you don't have to tell people you're in control. You don't have to explain that you're disciplined. Your very presence does the talking for you. You know that person, right? The one who can walk into a chaotic, tense meeting, say absolutely nothing, and their calm, focused energy just takes over the room. That is embodiment. So let's leave it with this final, really powerful idea. It all boils down to self-command. When you master yourself, you start to master how other people see you. And when you can command perception, you can shape outcomes. It's a direct line. So I guess the final question isn't for me, it's for you. What outcomes are you going to start shaping once you learn to command your silence?